Stefon Diggs is on the Texans. How does that change their draft strategy? What should the Texans do when the draft gets here in just a couple of weeks? Let's mock it. Welcome into the channel. I'm Cody Stoots. Let's talk some Texans and let's do a mock draft after the acquisition of Stefon Diggs by the Houston Texans. That certainly changed some things and allowed the Texans to maybe wait on wide receiver. Now, they shouldn't totally eliminate wide receiver. I explained in my previous video here on the channel, which you can check out in the comment section down below, why I still would prioritize a wide receiver for the Texans, but we've got to let the mock draft speak to us. Let's see what the mock draft brings to us. We're going to go through 6 rounds, 2 mock drafts. You don't want to miss any of it. Let's fire it up. Pro Football Focus, their mock draft simulator is first. We're going to slow it down just a little bit in case we want to make some moves. You know, Nick Caserio loves to get to trading. But let's get the draft started. We're not making a move with the Chicago Bears, but let's get started. The goal here, to me, in the draft for the Texans is to go out there and find themselves with a for sure, no doubt player on the 2 deep with those 2 second-round picks. So find a guy, maybe he's not a starter right away, finishes the year as a starter, but on the 2 deep, the Texans find themselves with a player that can help the team succeed on Sundays or Monday night or Thursday night or Saturday. The Texans are going to play some primetime games this year. You got to find somebody that can help the team right away with those second-round selections. So the Texans are on the clock. We got some trade offers. Let's take a glance at some of the names that came off the board and where they came off the board. Look, Byron Murphy, the second, the player that I would have traded up for should he started to slide. There's no slide here for him. He ends up at pick 14. We're going down a little bit more. Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell coming off the board. The Texans' original draft spot, Chop Robinson, goes to them. Now, obviously, looking at this, if Nate Wiggins had been available and the Texans still had the 23rd overall pick, that would have been an easy selection right there. Troy Franklin's one of my favorite wide receivers. He comes off the board. Xavier Worthy comes off the board. Johnny Newton or Jerzon Newton, he comes off the board. That's a player that you were maybe hoping, if you're the Texans, would fall to 42. Oh, Ladd McConkey would have been certainly a whole lot of fun. Same with Kool-Aid McKinstry and Enos Rakestraw Jr. Let's take a look at what we've got here. A couple of edge options, safety, wide receiver. I wonder what the trade offers are. The Colts want to jump up 4 spots. You can't really grab a ton of value from that. I don't really want to move back 9 spots to the Steelers, so we're not going to explore any of these trades. So let's look at where we are at the top of the draft board that Pro Football Focus has. Tyler Nubin is a fun prospect. He is a thumper from Minnesota at the safety spot. The Texans have their starting safeties with Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward, and they have a key backup in Eric Murray, but Nubin as a guy that could turn into a starter by the end of the year, could help you right away with special teams, could help you with depth at the safety spot. That's an interesting thought process here at 42. Sandra Strill, who plays nickel corner, is one of the best nickel corners in all of college football last year. That's a guy that gets me a little bit interested in making a selection there. And Desmond King's only on a 1-year deal. Jeff Okudah's only on a 1-year deal. CJ Henderson's only on a 1-year deal. If Derek Stingley got injured and Desmond King needed to bump outside, could Sandra Strill come in and help you in the slot? He certainly could. I like a lot of these wide receivers. Roman Wilson and Ricky Purcell are 2 guys that I really like. Keon Coleman's another one. Now, the Texans have another selection right down here in the 2nd round, so I can get a little creative with this. Drafting a slot corner right here doesn't feel like something that I need to do. I like Nubin. I feel like he can help this team. They need some safety depth. D'Amico Ryans talked about how he needs to get some luck at safety with the health, and he needs some consistency out of the position. Nubin was about as consistent as anybody at the safety spot in all of college football. Let's get a safety here for the Texans, and let's add some defense to the equation. A couple of those wide receivers start to fly off the board. Max Melton, a cornerback from Rutgers, is certainly a player that I would have thought of. Now it gets very interesting. Nobody wants to trade with the Texans here at 59. Jatavian Sanders right off the bat jumps off to me. Adding him to the tight end room that includes Dalton Schultz and Brevin Jordan, fighting with Tegan Quintiriano to stick around Team Quintiriano is fighting to stick around after injuries have ruined his first 2 seasons in the NFL. Sanders and Quintiriano battling for that third tight end spot. Sanders maybe battling with Brevin Jordan for that, receiving tight end spot that Jordan occupied so much. That's an interesting name. Let's think about that. Keon Coleman is such a fun player. He is a unique wide receiver from a skill set position, easy for me to say, compared to what the Texans currently have. It's going to be hard for me not to go with Keon Coleman. Let's just scroll a little bit more here. Edgerrin Cooper, I know a lot of people want linebacker depth. I hear it in the comment section. I see it on social media, and Cooper's one of the best linebackers, maybe the best linebacker in this draft. My problem with Cooper is, does he help you right away on this defense? You're going to play 2 linebackers most of the time. That's Christian Harris, Azeez Al-Shire, and then Henry To'o and Jake Hansen are still on this team. So he factors in heavily into a backup role right away. And DBs, and they help out a lot more when it comes to special teams. That's why we took Newbin. They help out a lot more than linebackers a lot of times. I don't love all of this. Man, I'd love to add Jalen Wright to the equation. It just feels a little early. Let's see if we can get lucky with the running back position. I'm adding one of these 2 pass catchers, Sanders or Keon Coleman. The fact that currently, as we talk about it, Nico Collins is set to be a free agent, Noah Brown set to be a free agent, and Stefon Diggs is going to be a free agent. I need some long-term thought process to this wide receiver room. Tank Dell's the only one that is a thought of starter, top 4 at the wide receiver group that's under contract beyond 2024. We're going to get somebody else. And oh, by the way, Keon Coleman got the shout out from CJ Stroud when Stroud hosted game day. And Keon Coleman said that he is excited to get to the NFL and wants to catch touchdowns from CJ Stroud. So the draft rolls on. A safety, a unique talent at wide receiver that is not currently present on the Texans roster. Certainly a fun situation. That one hurts right there. Jalen Wright right there before the Texans select. That certainly would have been a fun addition to this Texans team. A couple of teams want to trade too far back. We're not going to explore that. I know Nick Caserio likes to move around, and honestly, Nick Caserio probably would make sure that Jalen Wright doesn't get snatched up in the pick before the team makes the pick. Unfortunately, I'm not Nick Caserio. I'm just general manager Cody Stoots. I like some of these offensive line options, but you got to go elsewhere with this situation along the offensive line. Some of these running backs are going to still be available. You would hope by the time the Texans get back on the clock. A DTD, my guy from Texas Tech, I say a DTD is TNT with how explosive he is. But the player I'm going to pick is up here near the top. I'm getting Trey Benson. I'm going to add him to the running back room. He's going to push Dameon Pierce for the backup running back spot, and he's going to learn under Joe Mixon. Look, Mixon, yes, got the contract extension, right? But it could very easily be just a 2-year commitment to Joe Mixon. Now you start to see the running back pecking order and the running back progression. Joe Mixon for 2 years with Benson helping him. You move on from Mixon. Benson's ready to rock. You got somebody else ready for behind Benson. And then you start putting yourself into a nice little turn and churn at the running back position. And you're never totally and fully pot committed to anybody from that standpoint. Dwayne Carter from Duke is a fun and interesting name. I'd love a big fella. Let's sort by the defensive tackles. I'm not going to get too out of pocket and force something from a defensive tackle perspective. Nothing that really jumps off the page beyond Carter. Gabe Hall is a player that in the 6th round, I'm going to be swinging for him. Let's look at some of the names that came off the board. We drafted a safety, so Cole Bishop probably would not have been a pick. Leonard Taylor, yet again, another player I likely would have drafted, comes off the board right before the Texans make their selection. Cade Stover and Cam Hart are both names that I would have selected. So again, Nick Caserio probably doesn't let those guys get snatched up. General manager Cody Stoots, unfortunately, does let them get snatched up. I don't love the cornerback situation. What do we got here at the top? Drafted a running back, drafted a safety, and drafted a wide receiver. Maybe one of these tight ends would be great for the Texans. Look, Ben Sinnott does not do anything great right now at the tight end spot, but he does it all. He's a 6-sport athlete in high school, played hockey really well. It helps with his balance and running the ball. He's one of the better tight ends at the Senior Bowl. Let's get the Texans a tight end here. And right back on the clock here. Tommy Eichenberg is sort of Henry To'o made over again. Smart guy, leader, the athletic ability, not quite there. So we're not going to go with linebacker depth just yet, unless we draft my guy, Ced Gray. Gray is a guy that can help on special teams. Here in the 4th round, you're okay drafting a guy that can kind of work his way into the 2 deep over the course of the season. Those 2nd-round picks, you need impact players, guys that can help right away. Ced Gray, I loved him at the Senior Bowl, what he brought to the table. I love the conversations that he had with media about, hey, I didn't do this well. I need to do this better at the NFL level. I got better about this. He was like running plays with media members in the media room, showing them how much better he'd gotten. I need some cornerback depth at some point, but we're going to get a solid piece of linebacker depth here. And then it's going to be a nice long wait. 188 and 189. The entire 5th round is going to click off the board. I'd love to get a corner. And again, at this point, you're drafting a corner. You're hoping for him to be able to contribute on special teams right away, maybe work his way up the depth chart. And I'd love to get a big guy, a defensive lineman, maybe an end who's got a little bit of excitement to him, or a defensive tackle. It's a couple of different ways I could go with this last 2 selections. Now, the Texans have a 7th-round selection, but we're not going to go to the 7th round. Okay, let's see what is out there. Ooh, Tip Riemann is a fun name to think about here. I know that the Texans in this mock draft have already drafted a tight end. Let's keep rolling on. Malik Mustafa would be an interesting one. More defensive back depth, but drafted a safety already. He's fallen based on the average draft position of these mock drafts and the Pro Football Focus ranking here. But let's continue to see if there's just something unique or interesting popping up here along these available lines. Oh, Frank Gore Jr., that's an interesting one to think about. Nothing just really jumping off the page. Let's sort by cornerback and see if there's a name or two that just really, nothing really I'm loving. Here's what I'm going to do here. This is going to be sort of outside what Cody Stoots usually does. Hunter Norzad is a guy that over the past 2 weeks has gotten a lot of buzz in the draft community, been a very interesting name. People have talked about how he's one of the more underrated players. I know he plays center. The injuries along the offensive line is something the Texans have dealt with a ton. So we're going to add some depth to that equation. And then I told you along the defensive line and interior defensive line, I'm going with Gabe Hall. I know it says 290 and he's getting drafted 220. Gabe Hall is going to be a middle of day 3 selection, I believe. So Gabe Hall is going to be the player that I draft here to wrap up this mock draft. Now, again, the Texans have more picks in this draft, but we're just doing the 6 rounds, the top 200 selection area where the Texans are. And I have a sneaky suspicion Nick Caserio is not using both of those 6th-round picks that we just used. I talked about how GM Nick Caserio would not let players that he really wants get snatched up right in front of him, and Cody Stoots did. I probably should have used those 6th-round picks to make sure that I did that. The mock draft assistant for Pro Football Focus wanted me to draft Spencer Rattler instead of Trey Benson. Well, that's silly. Got 2 A's, got 2 C's, a B with the addition of Gray. They don't like Norzad. They don't like Gabe Hall. This is a B draft from Pro Football Focus. They are being ridiculous. This is a really solid draft. Helps you right away on special teams, immediate depth for the safety spot. Unique wide receiver skill set, long-term potential with this wide receiver room. Helps you immediately, you would hope, with running back 2, because running back 1 doesn't take all the snaps anymore. This isn't the 70s. Helps you immediately with depth at tight end, maybe some special teams usefulness, depth at the linebacker spot, special teams usefulness, you would hope, and then depth players along the defensive and offensive lines. Professor Cody says this is an A-plus draft. What say you? What say you? That's our first mock draft. Knock that one out with Pro Football Focus. Do you like that mock draft? We're going to give it another mock draft to compare to. We're flopping over to Pro Football Network for this one. Again, 6 rounds. They do some interesting stuff with their mock draft simulator where the teams offer you trades. So we'll see if there's a trade that makes sense here for the Texans that will pop up. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr., bang, bang, boom. Those are the first 4 picks. And that's kind of how I would estimate it goes for the most part. You're going to get quarterbacks and wide receivers flying off this board early. Like Brian Thomas Jr. coming off the board. The tackle run just started right there in the first round. So Adonai Mitchell goes at 23. Kool-Aid McKinstry and Nate Wiggins were available along with Johnny Newton. So there would have been some players there at 23 if the Texans indeed had stuck around there and some more wide receivers start to fly off the board at the beginning of the second round. Nothing that I feel like I have to go and do and trade up. All right, so the Vegas Raiders, they want one of the 6th round selections, and they're going to jump up 2 spots. Oh, but look what name is available. Look what name is available. This is who the Raiders are jumping up for. This is who they are jumping up for. It's Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle from Texas. I can't take the trade call. I'm not even picking up the phone if Byron Murphy's on the draft board. I'm drafting Byron Murphy if I'm the Texans, and I'm having a damn party. He is the best defensive tackle in this draft. And for him to luckily be available in this mock draft, sometimes some strange things happen in the National Football League. Teams prioritize things differently. To have Byron Murphy from Texas available at 42, dream scenario. Don't believe it's going to happen, but a dream scenario. Okay, the Denver Broncos want to jump up, and let's take a look here before we go through the trade offers at some of the players that are available. Got a dream player at the defensive tackle, so maybe you can get a little unique and aggressive with some trade backs and picking up some additional picks here. I sure would be interested in getting Max Melton on this Texans team. Let's see what that other trade offer is. The Minnesota Vikings, they're calling again. Hey, look, the Texans can own the entire Vikings draft next year, basically. Well, they traded that second-round pick, but Minnesota really sees a player that they like. It's moving far too far back. A bunch of players have come off the board. We're going to reject that trade, and this one's nearly 20 picks. Surely I can find a player. You do pick up an extra third, a few picks in front of the other one, but you move back quite a bit here. I'm going to reject this as well, and I'm going to grab the Texans somebody here. It's tough to go away from Max Melton. Let's sort through defense here. Let's look at the cornerbacks and the safeties. It's tough to get away from Melton. DJ James is an interesting one. A thinner guy, a slider guy, but plays a lot bigger than his weight would tell you. But I can't get away from Max Melton, the cornerback from Rutgers, a workout freak at the combine. Give me Max Melton. And let's see the draft roll on. A dream draft here in this mock draft for the Houston Texans. 2 defensive players. Byron Murphy from Texas, the best defensive tackle in football, miraculously falls to the Texans in this setup. And then get a depth on the cornerback spot, a special teams player, because DBs can play special teams, and Max Melton. That's a fun one. Let's see what pops up here at 86 overall. The Seahawks want us to move back a few spots and pick up a 3rd-round pick. Now, let's take a look and see what's available here. Man, there's so many right away. There's so many players that would be interesting. Shipley, Allen, and Trotter right away. It makes me feel like I don't really want to move back. Sandristrill's still on the board. DTD is still on the board. I don't really want to move back. Cade Stover is still there. Man, it's tough for me to move back. Next pick is 123. The trade offer would move us to 102. I'm going to reject this. I'm taking one of these running backs. Shipley hasn't run a ton outside. I was reading that earlier today. Hayden Winks from Underdog Fantasy. They do a lot of great breakdowns. Of course, they're a great sponsor here of the channel. Check them out in the link in the description down below. But catches the ball, can run the ball really well between the tackles, would work probably in his zone scheme really well with his athleticism and football acumen. catching the ball out of the backfield. Braylon Allen's that hammer. He can, be a big, heavy, aggressive guy between the tackles. I like Shipley's versatility. I'm going to get an offensive player here. I'm getting Will Shipley. This draft is turning out to be just a beauty, just an absolute beauty of a situation. Okay, not quite done with the third round yet. All right, top of the fourth round here. Top of the fourth round. Looking at some of these players that are available. Sandrill and Stover are intriguing names that would be really nice additions to this draft. I'm trying to put my Nick Caserio on. After last mock draft, some of the players I really wanted flew off the board. Let's just kind of monitor these first few picks here of the fourth round, because if Stover and Sandrill start to drop, I'm going to go up there, use some of those sixth-round selections, and try to go get one of those guys. Wide receiver, linebacker, wide receiver, corner. Kalen King comes off the board. It's a guy the Texans have talked to. Okay, it's within striking distance that I'm going to go get Cade Stover. Get a pass-catching tight end, tough, rough, gruff, country boy, loves C.J. Stroud. Said at the scouting combine he'd do anything to play with Stroud again. We're going to go talk to the Chargers right there. Ironically, with the selection that I believe they got for trading Keenan Allen when the Texans were in on trying to get it, we'll go 123. And how about 188 for 110? Would the Chargers do that? Let's see if they would do that. Oh, they don't want to do that? Well, let's give it another shot here. Okay, they didn't like my first trade. All right, 123 and 127. Let's do 110 and 140. So it drops us out of the fourth round with that other fourth round selection. But we get the player we want. We pick up another pick. We keep those two sixth round selections that we've got. Surely the Chargers are going to do this one. Wow, the Chargers don't want to trade with me. All right, let's roll on. Let's see what happens here. Let's see if the Ravens or the Bengals. And I guess that's the pick they got from the Bears, 114. They had 110. Jacksonville, I'm not trading with Jacksonville. They can stick it. Let's go one more player. Oh, no, there's my guy. I'm not trading with the Colts either. They can stick it. Hey, they went tight end. Well, now I'm sitting here, and I'm not that far off. Do I let it ride? No, I'm not going to let it ride. 118, let's go to the Seattle Seahawks. Certainly, they would be interested in moving up. Let's see, 123. Let's offer both the sixth-round picks and see if they will drop down a couple of spots. Sixth-round picks, yes, we'd love to make those selections, but getting the player that we want is a really important aspect of this conversation. Will the Seahawks do it? Yes, they will. We're going to get Cade Stover, the tight end from the Ohio State. Wow, what a move by general manager Cody Stoots to trade up and go get Cade Stover. Just a few selections, and we make sure that the Houston Texans end up with another offensive weapon. The Chargers are offering us a draft pick here. They want to jump up to 127, and they're offering us a little bit there. You know what? You didn't like my trades. I don't like your trade. Reject. Let's see here. So the Texans have, in this dream mock draft, Byron Murphy, Max Melton, Will Shipley, Cade Stover, 2 players on defense, 2 players on offense. I'd love a little wide receiver depth. And Jalen Wright still being here is really annoying because I probably like him more than Will Shipley. Let's see what's here at wide receiver. I know the Texans have talked to Javon Baker and Jamari Thrash. Malik Washington is very much a slot-only type of guy. The Texans have already added a tight end. I don't really want to go with an offensive lineman. Is there an edge player that is really exciting or fun here? No, not really. What about a linebacker here? No, not really. How about a safety? Okay. Texans add to the defensive backfield with a safety. I like Malik Mustafa. He's a tough dude. He played really well at a smaller school, got to Wake Forest, increased his draft stock, worked out well at the Senior Bowl. Guy that I like and would like for the Texans to pursue. Is there a corner I love in this situation? No. We're going Malik Mustafa, and that's going to end our mock draft. We traded those 6th-round picks to go get Cade Stover, but because you added so much talent with that first selection in the 2nd round, because Byron Murphy was there, you could get aggressive with those 6th-round picks. And again, we did this mock draft just through 6th round. The Texans do have a 7th-round selection, but I'm only doing picks here in mock drafts in the top 200 or so. And so the picks keep flying off the board. There's nobody that really I'm dying to see the Texans jump back into this draft or move up on, like my guy Gabe Hall. But because you got Byron Murphy, you don't have to have a guy like Gabe Hall out of Baylor, and he just went to the Lions. They'll enjoy having Gabe Hall in this imaginary universe that we are operating in. So the players continue to tick off the board. We'll get the full draft recap here in just a moment as Pro Football Network tolls on through the draft. Nobody that I'm going to go trade a future pick to jump up for and go get that player, because in this mock draft that we're going through here right now, compared to the first one where a couple of players that we really liked jumped off the board, we went through and made sure the Houston Texans got the players that they wanted in this mock draft. And I have a hunch most of you are going to enjoy mock draft 2 a lot more than mock draft 1, but we will wait for that one to finish up before we get to that and see what Pro Football Network has from their mock draft simulator. This is our draft here. It's just 5 players. But again, you get a potential starter at defensive tackle in Byron Murphy as he slips all the way to 42 for the Texans in this scenario. You get a unique athlete to add to the cornerback room, add to the depth of that position, help you on special teams. You get a clearly defined skill with one of your offensive players, and Will Shipley can catch the football out of the backfield. That's what he does really well. He can run all the routes that running backs need to run. That's a really nice skill to have. Adding Shipley to the equation, you get Cade Stover, C.J. Stroud's old teammate, pass-catching tight end, a guy that can immediately push Tegan Quintiriano. And maybe you keep 4 tight ends because Quintiriano's healthy and shows you something. And if not, you've got Stover, Jordan, and Dalton Schultz as that tight end room with Andrew Beck as the tight end / fullback. And then Malik Mustafa, depth at the safety spot, special teams player that can help you out as well. My goodness, what a couple of mock drafts. What a fun way this draft can play out for the Houston Texans. The addition of Stefon Diggs, the multiple other additions the Texans have made along the defense doesn't force them into a little box that they have to do this or have to do that with their selections and with their moves in the 2024 NFL draft. They can go a lot of different ways, as these 2 mock drafts showcased. So, which do you prefer? Dream mock draft number 2, where you end up with one of the best defensive players in the draft dropping to you at 42, or the depth-heavy, immediate, 2-deep impact of that Pro Football Focus one, and I'll refresh your memory on that one. Depth. You know, you get a lot of good depth here. I know it said B, but we thought this was an A draft. Benson is immediately pushing Dameon Pierce for a running back 2. You can put Keon Coleman on the field right away. He grows into that role in case 2 of the top 4 wide receivers leave in free agency. Newbin will push guys. You need some talent at safety. Sinnott and Gray are depth pieces, and then this is deep depth pieces here at the back end. And then, of course, you got the big one, the fun one, Byron Murphy. Wow, what a dream scenario. Byron Murphy ends up on the Houston Texans in the 2024 NFL Draft. Okay? Byron Murphy ends up on the Houston Texans in the 2024 NFL Draft. I will be making a wager on the Texans to win the Super Bowl, and I will use the money won from that wager to throw a party. And the YouTube watch crew is invited. is invited. We'll throw a big party. All right. Speaking of big parties, we did a lot there in the fourth, fifth, and sixth round. We went up there and got Cade Stover, added another player. The fourth round, the fifth round, the sixth round, the seventh round, those are fun rounds of the draft. Don't miss the draft party. Landry Locker's been tweeting about it. I've been tweeting about it. You don't want to miss out on it. Daily Sports Club, 922 Holman Street, Saturday, April 27th, day 3 of the 2024 NFL Draft. We're throwing a party. It gets going at 11 a.m., and we're going to have the draft sound on. We're going to talk about the players the Texans draft in the second round, talk about the whole offseason. I want to see you there. Put it in your calendar. Mark down how you're going to get there. They got the giant parking garage attached to the building, so there's plenty of parking there for you. There's street parking if you want to try to maneuver and find yourself some free street parking. There's street parking right around there as well. You don't want to miss out the watch party. Myself, Landry Locker, Figgy Fig from Sports Radio 610, and you never know what else we're going to have in store for you from a showing up standpoint. I want you at this draft party. Do not miss it. The Saturday of the NFL Draft, Daily Sports Club, 922 Holman Street. Don't miss out on it. If you miss out on it, you'll be missing out on the draft party of the year. It's going to be a blast. We're going to pack that place. The food's great. The beer's cold. The drinks are tasty. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a fantastic and fun party. I hope you've had a fantastic and fun viewing experience watching 2 mock drafts here on this Saturday. It's certainly been fun for me going through this. I love the draft. It's my favorite thing in the offseason. I like it more than free agency. I like it more than anything else. The draft is my favorite thing in the offseason. It's one of my favorite things about the National Football League. It lets me meld my college football love with my pro football love. It is great. It is fun. It is just a few weeks away, and I want you to weigh in the comment section down below on which mock draft you like more. Number 1, super depth. Number 2, super surprise with Byron Murphy. That was 2 1s, but number 1, super depth. Number 2, super surprise. That's how we're naming these mock drafts. Let me know in the comment section down below. Throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait till we talk Texans and mock them again soon.